Krowji is an old school building in Redruth that we've converted and developed it into a creative hub. So that's workshops, studio spaces, meeting rooms, a cafe, offices and so on for the creative sector for Cornwall.
When this project began in 2005, what was on the site?
It was an old redundant school really, so it was originally the grammar school for Redruth from the early 1900s, then became part of the comprehensive with the secondary modern next door in the mid-70s. Towards the end of the 1990s there was a big PFI funded building scheme next door. The school relocated out of these buildings, so this building then became redundant. And there was a strategic decision by Cornwall Council, the district councils, the Arts Council and so on, that really Cornwall needed a sort of focused hub for the creative sector.
Tell me a bit about the mixture of tenants you have here.
It's extremely diverse, and I think that's one of our strengths. So we have everyone from theatre companies like Miracle Theatre and Wildworks to furniture makers, sole traders. We have Tristan Harris and Sam Walsh based here. Then we have jewellery makers, illustrators like Esther Connon, and then from there we have lots of digital businesses. We have Engine House VFX, who are just about to make their first feature film. We have 120 studios now, so it's quite a large base. That's across 5 different buildings, and then we have about 200 people working on site.
Did you have a break-even size or number of studios that you needed to let?
I think we always felt you needed a certain critical mass. You need a certain floor area to bring in enough money to make sure you can run the site properly. And so we thought that was about 20,000 square feet as a minimum really.
You've explained to us about the origins in the old grammar school building, but we now have the new annex, which is the Percy Williams building. How did that come about?
When we bought the site, there was always a plan that we'd develop it. We got architects appointed in 2008, 2009, got to planning approval for a whole master scheme that would involve keeping the original granite buildings, demolishing everything else, low-rise 1950s, 60s, 70s sort of additions and so on. We then managed to raise the funds to do phase 1 of it. So the Percy Williams building, as it stands now, it is a 2,200 square metres of workspace, and that was opened in June 2015.
And that's phase?
That's phase 1. Of probably 4 or 5 phases, and we have planning approval for 3 phases at the moment.
It seems to me that a project like this needs a very good relationship with the local planning authority. How did you approach them? We've
always had a good relationship with the council. I suppose that's the key thing, that Cornwall Council, which has always been very supportive of the project, is also the planning authority for the area, so that's helped to having that support behind you when working with the planners. We were also really helped at the early stages of this project. We had an urban development company covering Redruth, Camborne and Poole. So they had a project team with planners, heritage people, the police were involved for sort of security. So there's a whole range of agencies.
Do you have to fight to keep your overheads low?
Yes, we do. Although I think there's a tension between the quality of management you offer, and ours is quite different to the ordinary industrial estate where you give the tenant the keys, you lock the doors and you go away, and then you go and sit in an office somewhere 10 miles away. We have a very much on-site presence, so we've got staff reception, which is open 8 to 5 Monday to Friday, cleaning services, post. Then the 3 full-time staff pretty much in the office are all themselves arts graduates, so they understand the tenant base, and so it's a very sympathetic model. So it's not cheap, that I think, but it's not hugely expensive. It's about 25% of our rental income, I guess, goes on that sort of office cleaning maintenance regime.
I manage the day-to-day things. My main focus is the studio applications, showing people spaces and getting them moved in, and then if anybody needs any help or support whilst they're here, they come to us in the office.
Why has it been so important that this is a creative hub?
I think it's been really important to have that focus. We often get applications from people who don't quite fit within our remit, and it's been really important to stand firm on targeting the creative industries, and we can support and advise those who are working in that sector.
What's your experience been of marketing this project?
Word of mouth has always been our best marketing tool. The creative community is quite connected, the word spreads that way, and then people come to us.
Which is more effective for Krowji, Facebook or Instagram?
I would have said Facebook, but I think now in the last year or so, Instagram is starting to take over. And I think because it's so visual, that really suits us very well.
How often do you post?
Every day.
More than once a day?
Several times a day, yes. In the last few years, we've introduced Skillshare sessions, which can be anything from a demonstration or a workshop or a talk or just a general informal discussion. And we often get inquiries from people off-site wanting to share information about a business or a service that they provide that might be of interest to our tenants.
Do you see yourself as a risk taker?
I think a taker of sensible risks, yes. My family's got a building background, so it's, building development's always a bit risky in that sense. I think for somebody working in the cultural sector, I've got quite a sort of private sector entrepreneurial attitude, really. And so our organisation's always done that. It's taken on projects, it has taken risks, and this was a big risk because buying a derelict building in Redruth was a big...
Nobody else was doing it.
No, nobody else was doing it, and nobody else wanted it.
For this business to work, was it crucial that you were already so well engaged with the creative sector in Cornwall?
Yeah, I don't think you could come in as a developer and just build a creative sector hub and expect it to work without any of those connections. There's very good networks in the theatre sector, the visual arts sector. Everyone knows each other, and I think those connections are vital really before you could do this sort of project.
What would be your advice to another business that was looking to set up a workspace hub, perhaps a creative one?
The first thing I would say is to come and have a chat with us. We are really supportive of anyone wanting to do something similar. We actually offer that advice service openly and often meet with people looking to set up a creative hub or even something that's perhaps not within the creative industries but they want to use our model and feel it might work for them.
I think you'd be surprised at how easy it is in some ways because there's enormous demand out there, I think, for people to come and work in shared spaces, to have their own little unit, but to be part of a bigger whole. If it's sector specific like the creative sector, there's an added value because the tenants here work with each other. The theatre company buys services off the photographer, say, or the designers do their websites. So everyone works to some extent for each other, so you'll get to know each other, and that's a real added value. You sort of discuss those things over the water cooler type moment, certainly really. So I think it's really important to have that. Yeah.
You've built that into the design of the building, haven't you?
Yes, we have. So people in the Percy Williams building, there's 50 studios, don't have their own sinks and water. They can if they want to have them put in extra. But we provided little tea, coffee, kitchenettes on each floor. So people are forced to bump into each other, you chat in the corridors, and then we have open studios and things where people can go around and see everyone's work as well.
Do you think this business can weather the Brexit storm?
Krowji Phase 2 does rely on European funds to get the building built. All being well, we'll be in before the deadline and that'll be fine for this phase. I don't know how Phase 3 would be financed in the future. There's the UK Shared Prosperity Fund coming over the horizon perhaps, but who knows really. So it's an uncertainty. I think for our tenants is also a worry, and that's a worry for us as a landlord because quite a lot of our tenants here work internationally. They're providing services and you quite know what status that's going to be, but we have tenants who, graphic designers for example, web people are working all over the world, so they're not physical products you're posting anywhere, it's all electronic services, and so the connectivity of Cornwall has been vital for that, but how that works after Brexit is definitely a worry. And maybe US markets will open up, but who knows, it's a worry certainly. So more for the tenants than for us, and then that knocks onto us as being a worry. Of course, if our tenants are less prosperous, there'll be less demand for workspace. I think it's a shame, obviously, my own view about it, but I think the business will carry on and be fine.
How has Krowji planned for its future? Well,
we've got our sort of master plan where we have planning proof for another phase after Phase 2, and then there's still the old buildings to sort out. Those phases are about demolition and building new. We've still got then to refurbish the older buildings, which is perhaps the most expensive bit in a sense because they're already full of tenants paying us rent. But I think it's got a sustainable future because it makes a surplus. It should run forever in that sense, really.
Ultimately, how many studio spaces do you think you'll have here?
Probably on this site, probably only about 130, 140, so maybe 250 people, say, that sort of number, which is, we're almost there now, really. It's more about giving a better service in better rooms here.